Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out. TCGPrime.com with over 100,000 Force of Will singles, as well as out-of-print boxes from the past, and TCG accessories, as well as FowlLibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at FowlLibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer patrons Shukong Fu, Vite Ramen, and Maxime Van He. Thank you for your support. Class is in session.
Hello, welcome back to the deck profile with yours truly, Paul Reissmann. It has been a while since we've done one of these, and so today I'm going to bring you one of my favorites, Olivia the Thunder Empress. If anything can be less random, Olivia is going to do that for you because of her special effect. She has Judgment for blue, and then she can bring out Dolly for free using her God's Art, and this is Dolly. We will be going over Dolly, who is not a fish, she is a beast. What? Anyway, we're flipping over to Olivia, the Thunder Empress, who is going to have Barrier Chant upon entry, which is really great. She's also going to get you a Stone upon entry, Rested, which is nice. You know, you're effectively, you're paying 2, but you're kind of not really paying 2 because you are getting an extra Stone. Olivia's Determination is on her backside as well, which means you can de-randomize something once per turn. And then if you God's Art on this side, you can make everything not random for the turn. So if you just want to go crazy, go for it. Of course, she flips into Dolly, which is probably one of my favorite blue cards ever printed. There's quite a few in here, honestly, because there's some decent blue stuff. Now that we're into the Wanderer format, Dolly is a 1-cost barrier 4/4. Already, that seems pretty good. If you would like to de-randomize something, they let you do that once per turn as well. And of course, it has the enter effect of produce a blue, return a target non-magic stone, non-J-ruler entity back to the hand, and then draw a card for your options to de-randomize into. Dolly, along with Olivia, has some really interesting interactions, especially with the will production effect, which goes into Fiola. So Fiola is a cancel for the deck, but it's a resonator instead of being a chant, which is really, really helpful because we're base blue in this list. So with Dolly and Olivia, you can play Fiola on your first turn if you are going second with your coin, which is a really good way of interacting with your opponent's board and making sure that they don't get to play things on their turn, as long as it's not a resonator. You can also remove this card from the graveyard to give Olivia more stats on her backside. So she's a 10-12 on her flip, but with Fiola, she becomes a 15-17, and that's just with one Fiola. Imagine the possibilities if there were more. Laurite, I feel like this card is basically a green staple in this format right now. You absolutely need this to play in Wanderer. One of my other favorite blue cards is Percival the Charmed Knight. I can enter and look at the top 5 of my deck to get a Regalia or a Chant. I do play some decent chants in this, like Surging Lightning, Thunder Empress Strike, Pulsing Thunder. There's some interesting things you can also do with the sideboard if you want to play things like Death Scythe. I think Percival is basically a staple for this deck. It digs deep and gets you the things you need. Plus it has that really nice Foresee effect, which goes really well with Priscia's Big Show. This card, if it's not banned, this deck is going to love that. That's all I got to say. This card is just the best card in green, hands down. And it's really good to be able to get anything out of your deck that you need, like additional Laurites, your own Fiolas, Sparklefish, your Wincon, which can be Terra Thunderfish. You'll see that a little bit later on here because we're about to go into Sparklefish itself. But this is also really good for setting up good draws and for just being like a good chain, right? You can just chain into these, then it's... I could just go on and on about this card, but you already know that. There's a reason this card is the best Greek card ever printed. Next we have Sparklefish. Sparklefish is also a quick cast resonator for 2. It is a 7/7, and I can choose one at random. Recover all my magic stones, cancel your non-resonator spell, or cancel your resonator spell. This card has a lot of utility, and it's just very, very, very strong. Also randomly a beast. what is happening here, because if it wasn't, it would work with Terra Thunderfish. This card cannot be canceled. That is the single reason this card is in the deck for me. That means it can't be canceled, but it can certainly be killed by other things, which might be a reason you don't run it. However, Fish Resonators I control gain swiftness, and then whenever this card attacks, I can choose one of these effects at random. I can rest your board, including your magic stones. I can destroy all of your rested J Resonators, or my Fish J Resonators that I control gain +6/+6 in flying, and they already have swiftness. So I thought this card was pretty amazing when it came out. This is everything I ever wanted Mega Thunderfish to be, and it wasn't. So here it is, Terra Thunderfish. That being said, again, it doesn't have barrier, so it can die to things, and we have some alternatives down below here that we're going to be talking about in just a little bit. Pulsing Thunder is the main board wipe of your deck. It gets rid of a ton of additions and regalia, so if you're playing against Alice or if you're playing against Kaguya, this card is really strong against that. It's got it just wipes the board of your Resonators in general, but if you don't unrandomize it, there's a potential I can just wipe your board too. So this is the Ice Shackles version of Olivia, which is definitely like a mid-range control deck. And so it can run Shackles of Ice relatively comfortably. So if you push out your Dolly early enough and then you draw into a Shackles of Ice, you're fine. Like, it doesn't affect you whatsoever to play this card. It really hoses Violet. I'm sorry, Jose, because I know you're probably going to be watching this. I'm sorry, Jose, at our locals, who plays Violet every single week, which is why I built this deck. Because I just wanted to play my fun blue rulers, and so I had to main deck Shackles of Ice. Otherwise, this card is going to the sideboard. I just want to be very clear. For Surging Lightning, this card is really good at getting around Barrier, which is definitely coming up in the meta game a little bit. There's also a 1-drop destruction for literally anything on the field. This card is absolutely wonderful, and it's got Quick Cast too, which means you can do it on your opponent's turn. This card is also very bread and butter for Olivia. And then this is the controversial pick. So there's definitely some conventional thought around this card in particular, because it can fetch things out of the deck, like your Pulsing Thunders or your other 2-drop Resonators. It can bounce the board, it can draw you cards, it can do a lot of different things. It has 6 different modes, which there's a lot of them. That being said, most of the time this card is being used to pull things out of the deck, like your Sparklefish or your Fiolas or your Pulsing Thunders. And since I only have 3 targets in the deck, and I'm seeing those in my hand relatively enough, having played this deck for quite a while, ever since it really came out, I thought maybe it's worth being able to go down to 2 of this so I can fit in other things like Lorite, which this card cannot pull out of the deck. I don't know. It also has Quick Cast, so I was like, maybe this card isn't as valuable because Favor Spell exists in this format, whereas it didn't when it first came out on New Frontiers. That being said, 2 more in the sideboard, so if you are just someone who really wants to see this card at 4 in the main deck, you can shimmy some things around to put this card in at 4, but for me, I just wanted to try it at 2, and it worked just fine. But again, it was locals, so you can do with that what you will. On to the stone deck, we have 4 Moonshade, which I am definitely taking out. I do not like having little life. There are different ways for me to access the will that I need on my turn. I'm already playing 4 Deepwood, and I'm playing 1 Light Vapors, which could easily just go to 4, and then 1 Kage Stone of Sorrow, which can go to 2 if I really want to fix my mana and not die from, like, just taking a bunch of damage. Just trying to produce will, right? These cards are also very accessible in Wanderer. Perfect mana is not that hard to find, so there's definitely something I can do with this. All of that being said, probably going to stick with just these stones from here on out. Now, if we go down to the sideboard, which didn't really come into play, but it's here, so I figured I would play it. Falling into the Cracks of Time, I thought this card was super cute at being able to, like, push a Hanzo back to just being a Resonator, or getting rid of an Ordered Mistletoe by just making it a regular Mistletoe. This card just seems funny, and so I was like, why not just play this against Order decks that are... we'll play 3 so we can slot them in right over the Shackles of Ice, and we're good to go. Like I said, there are Order decks at my locals. There's Kaguya, there's Alice, there's other things going on, some Odin stuff happening. So, you know, this felt like a really good pick for me. Setting the stage for Providence, in case my opponent just wanted to get really cheeky and just start canceling all my stuff, I was just going to say no and draw a card. Spinning Aqua Soul gets me back things like Surging Lightning, Emperor's Thunder Empress's Strike, Pulsing Thunder. Can bring back a Prissia because you can just grab back Prissia's Big Show. If it's just getting discarded or it just dies somehow, here's your Spinning Aqua Soul to bring it back to your hand. So this card has some utility in the deck. The 7th boon, because I just hate Belial with a passion and I want to see his tokens die in a Fiery Inferno. That's a pun. And then we go to Thunder Empress's Strike at 2, which is something I mentioned before. Now, we're going to talk about some alternatives that I've thought up for Terra Thunderfish. If you don't like that card, play Valentina. This card is going to steal your opponent's board, all very Feasting Mujdart style. It's kind of funny, so just steal their board and attack them with it, especially on their turn. That's hilarious. Fish of the Demonic World, burn your opponent's board and burn them for 10. Seems like a good deal to me, and you can play multiples of this and get it out of the deck with Thunder Empress's Strike. So this might instigate some changes to the amount of Thunder Empress's Strike that you do run. It is a little vulnerable to Lorite though, so just be careful of that. Others I considered Arthur Space-Time Knight. This thing is okay. It's got quick cast and it's got decent stats. However, the thing that made me worry a little bit is I'm not really having a J-Ruler very often in this deck. You don't really make Olivia that often, so the discard effect seemed a little off. But it's still a 7/7. It looks at stuff from the top of your deck. Seems pretty good. I opted to run Percival over it. Undying Spirit of Water. If you mess around with your stone base, this card easily comes out Thunder Empress's Strike, bounces your opponent's resonators back to their hand, steals their tempo. I've loved this card since it was printed. It was just amazing. One thing that was brought to my attention is this card, Space-Time Mage of Mott. It taxes your opponent, but it also, when it enters the field via Prissia, you draw a card, which is kind of handy, and it's also got decent stats. And then you have Worse Valentina, and you have Worse Terra Thunderfish, which is all I've got to say. These are all options, but I would probably gravitate more toward the Owner of the Theater, Demonic World Fish, and maybe Undyne are probably my top picks. There you have it, guys. You just watched a deck profile by yours truly. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below about this deck. I would love to talk about your card choices, your Olivia builds, anything you want to say about this deck. Let me know because I'd love to interact with you. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and until next time, this has been Paul, signing off.